Hi, this is Debbie. I promised everyone that I would make a video about how to make pop-up cards, and I said I would start out with this basic stair card, which is on my blog. If you don't want to make it, you can always download it, and it includes all these little pieces here. I'm going to discuss these little pieces over here right now, and I've grouped them together. I'm going to grab this little girl that's over here. Let me ungroup these for an example, and I'm going to grab one of the cats here. I always print and cut extra things when I cut, and I just put them in a little stash in case I need them for something else. Now, let me ungroup these. But I do want those perforated lines, so I'm going to group those back together. Because these little perforated lines that I made in this is to show you, okay, if you look at the card that's on my blog, you will see how this little girl sits in front of these steps, along next to her the little kitten, and of course the little rug that I made, and then these are the staircase that goes along the border of the steps here, and I have them perforated. They fold in. I use the other side to fill it in, but I put these on first, then use these little squares as though they were pieces of carpeting to cover up where I had laid them. But anyway, in order to make this little girl and the cat pop out, I took 2 strips, and I'm just going to manually turn this. And I measured my little girl, so I knew that I wanted this to glue on towards her back. So this is where I would glue this portion here to her back, and this is the amount I wanted her to pop out away from the stairs. So I put perforated lines in between here. This keeps that, and then I just glued these here after I folded this down, and then glued another strip or whatever, so it makes like a perfect little box, sort of. And then just glued it to this tab to the back of the steps, so that left her out that far. I did the same thing with the kitten, or the cat, and he looks like my little cat. We call Quincy. He's a black and white cat. And I'm going to move him over here real quick so you can see. And I knew I wanted him to go out this far, but he's such a little kitten, I had to make such a tiny strip, but it worked, and using these double pieces makes it a little bit sturdier. So now that I've shown you how to put this file all together, I'm going to go over here and show you how you can go about doing this. First of all, you want to create a card size smaller than what your finished card will be, because this stair part, the pop-out part, is going to glue inside this card, because you don't want people to see the cutouts. You can't fold it, and when I fold these pop-outs, I always kind of fold from the back, and you keeping the perforated lines on these is not a big deal, but for our cards themselves, we sometimes don't like those sharp perforated looking lines, but I'll get into more about that in just a minute. Okay, so basically what I think beginners would need to do is just sort of kind of eyeball things and measure them out. So you want your first cut to be at least this much below, a little bit below, and then I'm going to duplicate this, Control click 2, Control click 3, so you know that your stairs you want to be about this height, starting from the bottom to the top. Now I'm just going to group those and fill them with red. And I'm going to bring it out a little bit. So we know to make steps, they have to be at different levels. So what I'm doing here is I'm lining all of these up. And I also know that you want your step to be about half the width. I'm sorry, the length. You want it to be about the width of the original. So you put those up there. And I'm going to control click. And this just gives you an idea about how you can go about making your step pattern. This is just a pattern, and I'm just kind of eyeballing this. I'm not making any kind of strategic measurements or anything. It's just going to give me the pattern for my steps. Okay, I'm going to fill this one with an orange so you can see what I'm doing here. And then to make your pattern, this is just to get you started. Pretty soon you'll be doing this without any kind of pattern, but it'll give you an idea of how you want your steps to be. And then you can group this just to go back and check things. We're going to group this. I'm going to move it out of the way. So now that you see where your perforated lines will go, where the orange squares are, you just draw your perforated lines. You can hold down the shift key to keep a perfectly straight line, by the way. And I always like to make my perforated lines a different color, so I go here and then I select my perforated line. And I know this is going to go up at the top of my stair, so I would place it here. And I know this one's going to go at the bottom of my stair, so that would go here. And the next one, and the next, and the next, and the next. And then drawing the rest of our cut lines is really easy. We know that the cut line is going to go from this bottom portion of the card all the way up to here. And then our next line is going to go from the top of the stair to the bottom of the second stair, top of the next stair to the bottom, top to bottom, top to bottom, and then your last little step is going to go the same way, top to bottom. And when it's all done and you have it folded nicely, you'll have a little pop-up stair. And like I said, you can find this cutting file on my blog. If you don't want to create one yourself, you can download mine and try it out. But this will give you an idea of how to create pop-up cards and make dimensional cards out of one piece of paper. Now, another kind of pop-up card I call using V-folds is a really fun thing to do as well. So I'm going to go over here to my pop-up bear. I'm just going to grab these two little bears. I always print out a couple of whatever I do. I just print it out. And I already rotated these so I could show you what I'm talking about. Okay. I created this bear just, of course, using shapes and stuff like that. And the most important thing about doing this is when you create your bear shape, is that you want to make sure that it's lined up to the middle of this card. If you want to make a bear or whatever you want to make. I just made a bear because it's quick and easy. And then you can take this head here that you create to the shape of your card, and you can go to your alignment tool and you align center. So you know that it's perfectly centered. And you would do the same thing with the body part. His belly. So there we go. Now, when you're doing this, the one thing that you definitely want to do is you want to, when you finish making the head, that's going to be a whole separate piece, because remember, you're going to take this piece here because it has to be cut in half, so when it folds, this head will tuck down over here. So let me give you an example. I'm going to go ahead and just quickly put together a sample of a bear. I'm not going to do the whole thing. And we can go to our replicate tool and we can mirror that right. Okay, now we're going to just go ahead and weld this together. And we're going to duplicate this. We're going to say this is our, now we're going to add our facial features onto this one, and we're going to group them all together like I've done in this one. And the reason why, and you're going to create your arms and your legs and everything else. Now, the next thing we have to do is remember that we want this to be perfectly in half. So, we're going to go ahead and do it to this one here, making another copy. I'm going to make a rectangle. And I could go with my line tool, but I pretty much know that this is perfectly in the middle. So that's good. And then I'm going to select both this rectangular shape and this and my bear head shape. I'm going to go to my modify tool and select subtract. Now I'm going to place this half one over here and remove this. We don't need that anymore because we already have a completed face and head over here. And we're going to pretend like we have our arms made and our legs and everything and the other little features. And then I'm just going to weld that together. So you would cut this piece out, and you want to, of course, and this is very important too, is when you make your V-cut lines, you want to make sure that you have a center line from here to here, from his head, that center line of the head down, and then you want to make another X. This is going to create your V fold, but you want to also make sure that, I'm going to ungroup this because this is one of them that I did wrong when I first did it. Okay, my V fold should be, let's ungroup, right from a point to a point. So we'll go ahead and delete those out so I can show you. Okay, I want this line to go up to this corner here, where the top of his arm. And then I want this line to go from this corner to this corner. And then of course I want my center line centered up with where I've left it here. And down. And now I can select all of these and change the line color to blue, because that's what I like to do my perforated lines in, and then perforate them. And there we have a bear that is ready to cut and fold. Now I'm going to group, no, I'm not going to group these together because it depends on what you want to do. Okay. Now again, when we go to layers, we know that if we click on each of these, it will show us what part we are looking at. So let's just say we're working with just the bear shape. And then down here are our lines. Okay, if we want to add another layer, and we'll just double click on this and call them perf lines, perforated lines. Okay, now I can go Control, hold down my Control key and select all these, and I'm going to drag them down to this layer. Because with our cards, sometimes, like I said, we don't want those perforated edges to show, and some other things we don't either. So the way we can set this up using layers, and I'm going to close this out now that I've set it up, and we're going to go to Cut Settings and select Advanced. And you'll see all these different line colors of what we want cut. Okay, I know that I've left the outline of my bear all in red, so I'm going to turn off this black. Run the layers anyway. Let's do the layers, okay? First of all, I want just my perforated lines to cut out. I'm going to select copy paper. Somewhere, I think it's way up here. Copy paper. And for myself, I've discovered that if I want just a faint line, like a nice little score line, I've set it down to a 1. Usually it's a 2. I must have already set that down. Okay, and that's what I selected my first layer to be, copy paper. Now I'm going to turn this off and turn on my second layer, which I'll move this off the cut area. And now I do not know why this is on. It shouldn't be. But anyway, I'm not going to mess with that right now because I just want this layer to cut, but I want it to cut on cardstock. And then I use my Image Plus cardstock. So I set that, and that's how I set it in layers. If I want to cut by line color, which I would have to change the circular line. I don't know why it's showing up as a perforated line, perhaps when I change things around. And of course I don't want these colors to cut. I don't want these colors to cut because these are the shapes of my bear faces. Let me turn those back on so you can see. See how they would cut, and I wouldn't want those to cut, so I turn those off and turn those off. And basically I don't want my blue lines on yet either because I first want to cut out my bear shapes. And once again, selecting cardstock. And I must have used 2 different colors of red because that's why I have 2 reds in here. So I have to go up and select a material from both of them. It doesn't matter, just as long as I'm showing you. I'll just put heat transfer material. And then here, I cut this, leave it on the mat just as it is, cut this part out. Then you can run it back through your cutting machine again. This time we're going to turn on those perforated lines and cut by line color, but we're going to be cutting them on this setting. We're going to do copy paper. And if you edit copy paper, let's see, scroll down. This is where you can change your settings, and once again I have it set to 1, and it's just going to barely put any lines in here, and then you'll kind of hand fold them. Okay, let me go back to this. Look, this video's taking a little while, isn't it? I'm so sorry. Okay, and then when you fold this back and forwards, and you fold this side to this side to this side, and it will make your little pop-up. You line it up with the center of your card, and you only apply glue to this little area back here, and so when you open it up, out will spring your bear. I'm going to show you one I made with a stamp. I used this stamp, and I had to make one with just her head on one side, and the other one the whole head, just like in the bear. And then I put my lines here, lined them up from this point, oops, this point here down to this point, from this point down to this point, and folded it all up nice and easy. And then when I finished, I folded the card to make sure she opened nicely, and then attached the head and folded it again, and she popped up beautifully. Trying to see if there's anything here that I missed. Anyway, I will show you more about how to make pop-ups and the mechanisms to make cards be more kinetic and do more things in some future tutorials. I hope you've enjoyed this one, and if you would like to see the pop-up cutting files that I created, you can just hop over to my blog. Thanks for watching. Bye, everybody.